Hey guys, welcome to the JW Untold Truth channel. So we're going to talk about the Norwegian country and how the Jehovah Witnesses lost their funding from the government. So it's interesting because the Jehovah Witnesses applied for the founding in 2021. They tried to register 12,686 members, because the Norwegian government gives funding for each member that each organization has. So the Jehovah Witnesses tried to register 12,686 of their members. And so what happened? How did the Jehovah Witnesses lost their founding? So we're gonna go through the timeline and see what actually happened throughout the last 2 years. So 12,686 registered Jehovah Witnesses in Norway. So how much is that for the Jehovah Witnesses or Watchtower? So that is a whopping 16 million crowns. And what is that in US dollars? It's just a $1.7 million, just a bit more than $1.7 million. That's a lot of money for every year. And I mean, I'm not sure if I'm wrong to say this. This is a bit hypocritical from the Watchtower to be asking for money or to be applying for funds from the Norwegian governments, because as we know, or as we were Jehovah Witnesses, we know that the Watchtower classifies these governments under Satan influence. And why on earth would the Jehovah Witnesses be asking for funds for a Satan controlled government? That is just blown out of my mind. I mean, doesn't make any sense. Why would Jehovah need money from his enemy? That is just the most ridiculous thing ever. It's just unbelievable. I mean, they should be freaking proud for not accepting money from Satan and be like, we are the true religion and we do not take, or we do not accept money or handouts from any Satan's government. But they do, and they are fighting for this money. Let's have a look and let's go through the timeline. So the timeline of events. So let's start with January the 1st, 2021. The new edition of the Religious Communities Act came in force. And what was this act? Well, let's read it. The law was scheduled to go into effect on January the 1st, 2021. According to its provisions, faith and life stance organizations with at least 50 registered members may apply for the state subsidies. The government shall pay prorated subsidies to organizations based on their membership numbers, as compared to membership numbers of the Church of Norway. If a religious or philosophical community or individuals acting on behalf of the community commits violence or coercion, makes threats, violates children's rights, violates statutory discrimination prohibitions, or in other ways seriously violates the rights and freedoms of others, society may be denied grants, or grants may be suspended. Grants may also be refused or reduced if the society encourages or provides support for violations mentioned in this section. So religious or philosophical communities that accept grants from states that do not respect the right to freedom of religion or belief may be denied the grants. So this is the new law that it came in effect in 2021. And then what happened next? Let's have a look. On February the 26th, 2021, the Jehovah Witnesses make a claim for the state subsidies for 12,000 plus members. 1 month later, March the 15th, 2021, the Ministry of Children and Families receives an inquiry from a former Jehovah Witness who explained that the religious community's shunning practices. So someone tipped the Ministry of Children and Families that the Jehovah Witnesses were violating these rules. So April 15, 2021, the Ministry of Children and Families forwards the inquiry to the state administrator asking whether the information provided a basis for conducting further investigations. So they wanted to check if this tip that they had had basis for conducting further investigation. So let's go to the next one. May the 27th, 2021, the state administrator contacts the Jehovah Witnesses for an explanation. So we would like to know more about this shunning and this fellowship process that you guys have. So let's keep going and let's have a look what happened next. So June the 23rd, 2021, the Jehovah Witnesses respond to the request from the state administrator. September the 15th, 2021, the state administrator contacts the Jehovah Witnesses again, referring to further inquiries, and informs the religious group that the information in the inquiries could have an impact on the processing their claim for the state subsidies, and asks for comments within 3 weeks. So what's happening is that when the Jehovah Witnesses provided the information to the administrator, the person who tipped these ministries already counter-react the response from the Jehovah Witnesses, giving more proof from their own websites, from their own books, that this was all lies, that what the Jehovah Witnesses or the Watchtower was, the information that they were providing was all deceiving information, or contradicts what they have published. We will see this later. We'll go to the next time of event. October the 4th, 2021. Jehovah Witnesses asked for further clarification on the basis of the investigation and possible refusal of grants. So now they were getting a bit worried, like, what do you mean now you threaten us, are you? we need more information now, guys. Alright, let's go to the next time of event. October the 25th, 2021. The state administrator responds to the inquiry from Jehovah Witnesses. November the 19th, the state administrator receives a statement from the Jehovah Witnesses. So the state administrator said to them, no, sorry, it doesn't seem that you guys gonna be granted these subsidies. So the Jehovah Witnesses sent a statement to the state administrator back in November 19, 2021. So what's next? January the 20th. So that happened all in 2021. So now in 2022, January the 27th, the state administrator decides to refuse the state subsidies to Jehovah Witnesses. So this became pretty much official that they were not going to receive the subsidies. So what did the Jehovah's Witnesses do? Of course, Jehovah needs the money. He's expecting this money to come through. So Jehovah Witnesses appealed the decision. March the 31st, 2022, the Ministry of Children and Families received the Jehovah Witnesses complaint, and let's go through this complaint and see how do they defend themselves. And you'll be surprised with the things that they said to try to convince the Ministry of Children and Families and the administrator that they were right and everyone else is wrong. Well, let's have a look at this. This is gonna be wow. So complaints from the Jehovah Witnesses about the decision of not granting the grants to the Jehovah Witnesses. I'm just gonna read the highlights of each paragraph, and you can stop the video and check this out and read the whole thing. But the highlights of this is these bits. Jehovah Witnesses claim, among other things, that the state administrator's decision is based on unlawful examination of the biblical and religious beliefs and practices. The decision is said to be in breach of the Religious Communities Act. So this is the main part from the complaints, that it was an unlawful examination of the Jehovah's Witnesses' biblical and religious beliefs and practices. Plus, it's a breach of the Religious Communities Act. So that is the main highlights from this paragraph. The second paragraph of the complaints was, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, the state trustee has applied the Religious Communities Act incorrectly. So they reckon they applied it incorrectly. As any member can withdraw completely freely. Line number 1. As any member can withdraw completely freely without hindrance, exactly when they want. Line number 1 here, guys. I mean, are they stupid or what? It's ridiculous. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the state administrator confuses obstacles with consequences. So they're telling them that, oh, you are confused. There are no consequences. There's just obstacles. It is indicated that it is up to each individual in the congregation to use their personal religious conscience to decide whether they wish to limit or not have contact with a person who has withdrawn, just as they would relate to a person who is excluded. Jehovah's Witnesses repeatedly emphasize that the religious ties between the excluded or the withdrawn person and the family change, but the family ties do not cease. Marriage and family life continues. In other words, no more family connection and togetherness will continue. Oh my effing God. I mean, if Satan is the father of lies, they are definitely the children of Satan. Alright, let's go to paragraph number 3. Jehovah's Witnesses disagree that the exclusion of baptized minors is negative social control or a violation of children's rights. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the state administrator assessments are not based on concrete or actual evidence. No, you guys got it all wrong. You just making this up. There's no evidence. There is not a concrete actual evidence that this is a social control or violation of children. Oh my goodness. Alright, let's keep going. Paragraph number 4. Jehovah's Witnesses maintain that becoming a member of Jehovah's Witnesses through baptism is a voluntary and conscious decision. Oh, really? Let's remind ourselves about that speech that one of the governing bodies said, that if your child is old enough to have a license, he should be baptized. That doesn't sound voluntary. It doesn't sound a conscious decision.
Them. But as you get older, you are responsible. Remember the nice demo? We've mentioned that before. Well, I'm not ready to get baptized. Okay, let's hold off on your driver's license. What? I'm 16. What are you talking about? I'm ready. I know I'm ready. Yeah, you're ready for a driver's license, but you're not ready to dedicate your life. Explain that one to heaven. That's why we repeated it on the program.
But let's keep going. The children make their own conscious choices when they have reached the level of maturity necessary to make such a decision. In practice, this happens in most cases when the minor is in his mind or when the minor is in his mid or late teens. Jehovah's Witnesses state that the hypothetical conditions on which the state administrator bases his decision therefore apply to mature minors between 15 and 18 years of age. Jehovah's Witnesses also drop parallels to other forms of expulsion, such as from school, football teams, and scouts groups and martial arts club. Oh, really? They are comparing themselves to other groups that if you don't follow their rules, they get kicked out. But hold on, you don't lose all your family, you don't lose all your friends, you don't lose your jobs, and they don't force you to have a type of life that they want you to, like the Jehovah Witnesses do. So to compare themselves to other freaking teams is just stupid. But let's keep going. So we are paragraph 5 now. Furthermore, Jehovah Witnesses state that the unbaptized minors who attend church meetings and participate in Jehovah's Witnesses religious activities with their parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses, listen to this, are not disfellowshipped if they do not follow the moral standards of the Bible. What? Really? Really? They are not disfellowshipped. So you're telling me that if any of them commits adultery or does reject the governing body or rejects the blood transfusion doctrine, they are not going to be disfellowshipped or disassociated and shunned? I don't think so. All right. Paragraph 6. Administrator in reality, by its decision, requires Jehovah's Witnesses to change their long-standing Bible-based teaching as a prerequisite for regaining the right to state subsidies. This is said to be an obvious violation of religious freedom and the religious community's autonomy and right to self-determination. So now they're saying that the administrator is threatening them, that they are forcing them to give up the Bible teachings to be Jehovah's Witnesses so they can get the subsidies, and they reckon that it's a violation of the religious freedom and the religious community. No, that is not what the grant is all about. Here the government's giving grants, subsidies to religious communities if they follow the government's rules. But if you're not going to, you can still practice your Bible-based traditions, your freedom of religions, but you ain't going to get any money from the government. That's all they're saying. You can keep shunning your kids, you can keep disfellowshipping them, but you are not going to get any dollar from us. So there's no violation. Okay, the last paragraph of the complaint. It is pointed out that there is no indication that the state administrator has carried out a similar examination of the beliefs and procedures of other societies. So now they were comparing themselves before to other groups. Now they are saying, but hold on, you are picking on us only. What about all the other groups? Come on, you're just concentrating on us. There are other groups that you guys are not doing the same thing. They're acting like little kids. Like, but what about him? He does the same thing too. I mean, come on. All right. So timeline of events: September the 30th, after the complaint of the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Ministry of Children and Families uphold the state's administrator's decision to refuse state subsidies for 2021 for the Jehovah's Witnesses. And we're going to read the response. And it's excellent. I love it. The state administrator has reviewed the complaint and cannot see the new and significant information has been added to the case. The state administrator points out that the religious community now they're gonna quote the books and the literature. Let's have a look. Community in Organized to Do Jehovah's Will, page 153, writes about those who withdraw from Jehovah's Witnesses that such a person, we quote in here, such a person is treated in the same way as someone who is excluded. Close quote. The state administrator points out that the religious community hereby encourages its members to avoid what? Contact with the registered persons. The state trustee also refers to chapter 12 of the book Shepherd of the Flock of God, or the elders book as well. What? They got access to the elders book? Jesus Christ. Which deals with typical cases which may result in the body of elders setting up a judicial committee. Point 17 is about shameless behavior and indicates that unnecessary association with excluded persons of those who have withdrawn can be a basis for appointing a sentencing committee. I think it means judicial committee. If the Council of Elders decides the judgment committee is not set up, it may still have consequences for whether the member is qualified to receive privileges in the congregation. According to the state administrator, this shows that define the call to avoid the registered people can have consequences for the members, and thus the religious communities claims that it is only the members themselves who decide who they want to have contact with are not true. The religious community in reality has a ban on contact with the registered members. The state administrator therefore maintains that the practice entails a breach of the Religious Communities Act. The threat of being ostracized and losing contact with family and friends appears to the state administrator as a serious for a child and constitutes negative social control. The state administrator refers to the Organized to do Jehovah's Will, page 154-155. Quote, if an unbaptized transgressor does not repent after two elders have met with him and tried to help him, it is necessary to inform the congregation. A brief statement is given that reads, person's name is no longer recognized as a baptized preacher. Hello? John Smith is no longer recognized as a unbaptized preacher of Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you very much. The congregation will then regard the transgressor as a worldly person. Although he is not excluded, the Christians will be careful to associate with him. 1 Corinthians 15:33. The congregation will not accept any field service reports from him. Oh, it does change matters. It does change things, doesn't it? The state administrator assumes that the section should be understood so that the child is socially isolated from the congregation as a reaction to the child's behavior. The state administrator therefore maintains that the treatment is also to be regarded as negative social control on the part of the religious community, and that the treatment infringes on the child's rights. As the decision concerns the religious community's claim to grant funds and not whether the religious community should be able to operate as a religious community in Norway, nor does it limit freedom of assembly or how the religious community must be able to practice its religion. So what it's saying here is that by losing the grants or subsidies, it doesn't mean that they are limiting the freedom of assembly or how the religious community must be able to practice its religion. It's just that they're losing the grants or the subsidies. That's all. They are free to do or to keep doing what they do. And to close, the state administrator upholds the refusal decision. So, no money. So now that we looked at the administrator's response to the complaint of the Jehovah's Witnesses, we're going to look at the ministry's assessment. And let's go through and see what the assessment was according to the Jehovah's Witnesses information that they provided and their complaints. So, the ministry's assessment. I'm just going to read the highlights. So, It is indicated that Jehovah's Witnesses have received sufficient information and the opportunity to speak repeatedly in the proceedings. The ministry finds that the matter is sufficiently well informed. The ministry notes that the Jehovah's Witnesses' right to exercise their religious exclusion practice is not the subject of the present complaint. A religious community will continue to be an independent legal entity with the freedom to govern itself, regardless of whether the community is denied registration or grants under the Religious Communities Act. Therefore, in the ministry's view, denial of grants under the Religious Communities Act does not constitute an interference with Jehovah's Witnesses' right to practice their religion or freedom of assembly. So by not receiving the grants, it doesn't mean that they are not allowed to practice their own religion. It just means that they are not getting any money from the government anymore. Violation of the Bible's moral standards can, according to the practice of the Jehovah's Witnesses, lead to exclusion, and a member who withdraws from the religious community is treated in the same way as an excluded member. The ministry understands it to mean that it is the act contrary to religion that determines whether or not a member is excluded, regardless of age. If the member is baptized, the same rules and consequences apply to both children and adults. Based on the information in the case, it is undisputed that Jehovah's Witnesses baptizes children. Example, people under the age of 18. Jehovah's Witnesses themselves have stated that it is common for children between the ages of 15 and 18 to be baptized. In a meeting with the ministry on 29 of April 2022, Jehovah's Witnesses did not want to give an absolute lower limit. I'm sure they know. For when children can be baptized, but Jehovah's Witnesses stated that it could not be ignored that children under the age of 13 are also baptized. Reference is made to the minutes from the meeting, which states, we're going to read the meetings. On the basis of questions from the civil service, Jehovah's Witnesses stated, among other things, that no statistics are kept on the age of baptized young people in Jehovah's Witnesses. In general, it was shown that the kid in the individual's level of maturity can vary from child to child. It is the child's personal relationship with God that is important, and it is natural to imagine that, example, 6 years old will not be mature enough to have developed such a personal relationship with God. Jehovah's Witnesses could not say that with certainty that preteens are not baptized. Jehovah's Witnesses wanted to emphasize that it is unusual for someone who was not yet reached his teenage years to meet the biblical requirements to be baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But a youth can qualify for and to be approved for baptism if the elders and parents are convinced of his or her maturity and that his or her decision to be baptized is conscious and voluntary. Jehovah's Witnesses do not practice infant baptism, but if they could, I'm pretty sure they would. The Norwegian director of Health defines negative social control as, quote, various forms of supervision, pressure, threats, and coercion that exercises to ensure that individuals live in line with family or group norms. The control is characterized by the fact that it is systematic, and may violate the individual's rights in accordance with, among other things, the Convention on the Rights to the Children and Norwegian law. According to the Director of Integration and Diversity, the aim is to correct and sanction the individual's behavior. The Director for Children, Youth and Family describes psychological violence as negative or hostile attitudes or actions without the use of physical force, which can give the child's feeling of fear, powerless, guilt, shame, inferiority, despair, or a basic feeling of not being wanted and loved. criticism of the child's value, rejection and ignoring extreme social control, isolating the child from natural social events, surveillance that goes beyond the child's rights to privacy, etc., are given as examples of what psychological violence against the children can be. We could just say it's examples of what shunning children against children and other people is like. They just describe shunning there perfectly, to be honest. So if you are listening to this, Jehovah's Witnesses, what did the person call it? Psychological. Shunning is a psychological act of violence. It is noted that the information on exclusion and denunciation on which the ministry bases this decision is mainly taken from the religious community's own publications. The information indicates that exclusion involves a form of strict, systematic, and targeted social exclusion, which the ministry finds to be in accordance with the above descriptions of negative social control and psychological violence. The consequences of exclusion are targeted both to keep the excluded person away from other members as a form of punishment to make the excluded person reflect on his actions. On the websites of Jehovah's Witnesses, it appears, among other things, in the article, why exclusion is a loving provision. That the provision of exclusion protects the pure Christian congregation, and the fact that the transgressor is excluded can make him come to his senses. It also states that family members can all show love to the congregation and the excluded person by respecting the decision on the exclusion, and that everyone in the congregation can show love based on principles by not having contact with the talking to the exclusion person. Oh, I thought it was a personal decision to shun other person. Apparently not. An information brochure on Jehovah's Witnesses and exclusion states that a main purpose to a disciplinary measure and avoiding a person is to make the offender come to his senses. Everyone in the congregation shows love based on principles by not having contact with and not talking to the excluded. It appears in the brochure to 1 Corinthians 5:13, remove the evil one from the congregation. Furthermore, it appears that a baptized witness who makes a habit of breaking biblical moral standards will be excluded to protect the congregation from bad influence. As examples of what can lead to exclusion, the religious community cites acts theft, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence, and sexual immorality. Although Jehovah's Witnesses indicate that members use their own conscience to make decisions on this issue and that they apply the Bible's guidance when they either limit their association with the excluded person or stop associating with him or her altogether, the religious community has also confirmed that the fact that a witness, baptized member of Jehovah's Witness, maintains contact with someone who is excluded from the religious community may provide grounds for setting up a separate case of judicial committee on that person. Reference is also made to an article in Bakar.net where it is stated that contact with the outcast must be broken because he who does not adhere to Christ's teaching but goes beyond it does not have fellowship with God. If anyone comes to you and does not teach this teaching, do not receive him into your home and do not greet him. Do not greet him, New World Translation. For whoever greets him becomes an accomplice in the evil he does. Furthermore, it is stated, and we all know from our own experience, that just saying hello can develop into a full conversation and may even a friendship. Do we want to take such a first step towards someone who is outcast? Ouch! Ouch! We're going to watch a short clip of the Ministry of Norway and he was interviewing one of the news channels. So let's have a look what she had to say.
Valgerd Sæsja Haugland, for lengst introdusert her egentlig, statsforvalter I Oslo og Viken. Hva var det utslagsgivende I behandlingen?
Altså, vi fikk jo varsling på hvordan folk opplevde å gå ut av Jehovas vitne, og hva Jehovas vitne gjorde med de som enten meldte seg ut eller ble ekskludert selv. Og jeg vil jo anbefale Selbekk å gå hjem og lese den nye lova. Han kan like den eller ikke, men jeg må forholde meg til det lovverket vi har, og der står det ganske klart hva som skal være lovlig og ikke lovlig. Før fikk barn juling, og de blir ikke straffet. I dag har vi et lovverk som sier at det ulovlig å slå bodden, eller for så vidt voksne også da, men det ulovlig. Nå har vi et trossamfunnslov som sier at du har ikke lov å krenke barna. Og det som skjer, det at hvis du for eksempel har noen bodden som ikke opptrer, eller som døypte da, og som kanskje ikke oppfører seg sånn, så disse som leier Jehovas vitne ønsker, så kan de bli ekskludert. Og det betyr at disse boddene ikke får ha kontakt med foreldrene sine, med søskene sine, men hvis du mottar den statsstøtten, så må vi altså forvente at du opptrør I tråd med lovverket, ikke bare grunnlover, men også trossamfunnslover. Og her står det ganske klart at disse tingene ikke lovlig. Og dette har ingenting med at Jehovas vitner populære eller ikke populære. Jeg tar ikke sånne hensyn, men jeg tar hensyn hva de utøver av makt I forhold til sine medlemmer, og de kan bli ekskludert av ulike grunner, og vi kan riste på hodet for det, men når de ekskluderer på denne måten, og fratar de familiene sine, vi fratar de søskene sine, mor og far, barn har faktisk rett på foreldre, og så skal noen som leder et trossamfunn for frata de kontakt med mor og far.
Og attpåtil da få statsstøtte som poenget her.
Og attpåtil få statsstøtte. Jeg bare si en ting til.
Det må være kort.
Jeg vet at jeg kan ikke, altså det som vi har gjort, vil ikke endre Jehovas vitne sin praksis, men jeg synes det veldig bra at de I hvert fall ikke skal få støtte fra staten til å utøve den praksisen som de har gjort. Og jeg at de kan fortsette som de vil, men da får de altså 16 millioner mindre I år for å drive dette arbeidet på. Så håper jo jeg da, for å si det sånn, at de skal endre sin praksis.
De ble invitert hit, men på grunn av pågående ankesak, så takket de nei I denne omgang.
Thank you so much for everyone to come and watch this video. Just hopefully other countries will follow suit as well. So let's have a look what we can find for the next video.